All right, we're back, and we are going to do a little birth hour Q&A. So we got a lot of questions from you guys after the birth podcast that we did, telling the story of Mirabella's home birth, our first home birth of our fourth baby. And so we thought that we would address those questions for anyone that is going to have or wants to have a physiological, unmedicated, unintervened with birth, whether it's in a hospital, birth center, or at home. Hopefully this podcast can be helpful to you, or just people that like to listen to birth stories.
Yeah.
Or people that like to listen to us talk. Thanks for being here.
And I'm here, so
Jared's gonna be the interviewer.
I was a part of it, so there we go.
And I literally took all of these questions from your guys's.
So I'm gonna have my phone out for this one. Here it is. I'm gonna read through a lot of these questions.
These are all from Instagram.
And these are from we have zero answers written. We just pull, or Audrey.
These are all the Instagram questions that I got in the box. So
literally within, I think your story's still live. So within the last 24 hours. Because this is all happening real time.
At the time
well,
when
they
recording
listen to this, it would be a week.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're recording this a week anyways. So let's cruise. You ready, babe?
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle unmedicated birth pain?
So, well, first of all, this was my first birth that I would truly say was pain-free. The only painful part of birth for me in this past with Mirabella was when I was waiting for my midwife to get there and she wasn't there yet. And she was like, I'm 3 minutes away. And I could feel my body pushing. I could feel the sensation of Mirabella coming down. And I knew that she was going to come then if I didn't hold it in. And so I was actually trying to actively stop her from coming out.
And did fear creep in?
Fear crept in that moment because it was just a moment of me, A, not letting my body do naturally what it would have done on its own, and B, me being like, oh crap, I wanted the midwife to be there. Yes, Jeremy and I had a plan for if the midwife didn't make it. She made it 7 minutes
But she was
before.
so close, you decided to wait.
But I was like, because she's 3 minutes away, it would just be so much smoother. And it's like what I wanted was for everyone to make it there on time. And so that was the most painful of any of my contractions. And I will say the main, go ahead.
You were able to correlate that contraction with directly to fear, right?
Fear and going against what my body's natural impulse. Yeah. Like instead of leaning into what my body was doing, I fought it.
Yeah, which is fascinating. I mean,
and
that right there is really.
I think with my other births, so just a quick recap of them. I had Ember in the hospital, had Bodhi in the hospital, had Radley at the birth center, and then Mirabella was our first home birth. All of my births were unmedicated. All of them were beautiful. I loved my experiences with each of them. They all had unique things about them that were super beautiful, and then unique things about them that were hard. But I will say that for my birth with the other three, I did not go into birth with the same mindset that I did with this one. With Radley, I was kind of like teetering on the edge. Like I know the flies are crazy.
Chasing this, just one fly.
I was starting to grasp this new mindset, but I really believed that as a Christian, it was not something that Christians could believe, to give birth without pain. I actually believed that.
Yeah.
So I was like, and there is a big group of Christians in this camp that think this way and that are against the Christian hypnobirthing and all of these things. We won't dive into all of those reasons.
That's a whole podcast.
But so I will say, I think one of the things that helped me the most was truly that mindset shift.
Yeah.
Was being able to go into this birth believing that this is something that my body was designed to do, and that it was not designed, that it could be pain-free, because I had seen so many people, I'd watched so many stories of people who had given birth without pain. And so that was one of the most empowering things that inspired me to share my birth story and birth vlog and all of that, was because that was one of the things that really helped me the most. And I didn't watch a single birth vlog before having Bodhi or Ember or Radley, but I watched probably 50 before Mira. And I think just watching these peaceful home births and seeing how these women labored, and just their environment and the peace that they carried, and how their husbands supported them and their partners or other people that were in the room that was like one of the biggest preparation things for me.
Totally.
Okay, on a more practical level,
though. Which is why you decided to share yours, to be a part of the mindset movement, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just clarifying. That's why we decided to ultimately, because we took this home video footage of the vlog of the whole thing, really just for ourselves, like we do with a lot of things. But this was, you felt like, I really want to share this, even despite how vulnerable it was. But it was because you wanted to be a part of the mindset movement that helped you change your mindset, or I should say, evolve your mindset, repent, shall I say, in many ways. And so that's the reason there.
Yeah,
okay,
repent could be a whole nother unpacked word.
More practical.
Well, hold on. And thank you. What was I saying? More practical.
Well, we're still on question 1.
I know, it's okay.
How do you handle unmedicated birth pain?
On a more practical level, I would say breathing. Breathing was absolutely huge. If you tense up, basically, if you're fighting against your body's natural urge, what you want to do is not do that. This is where I feel like bar 3 and being a distance runner really did help prepare me physically on a more practical level, because as a runner, like, you can't, when you tense up, it's not good. Like but the more you relax, the more your energy stores actually feel filled up. And it's the same with like bar 3, you know, you're not supposed to tense up. You're supposed to basically be in a relaxed state through intensity, which is literally childbirth. And so the more relaxed you can be, the more your body can efficiently do what it was designed to do. Whereas if you're tensing up, if you're gripping or holding on to things or you know, speaking negative things over yourself and letting your shoulders rise and all these things, then you're going to be working against that. And that's going to potentially slow your labor, potentially cause fear. And
it's against God's design effect. And more so, I would say, against fear, or on fear's design. And same thing with stretching, right? Like half of stretching is breathing. They say you'll lose up to 50% of the results from stretching if you don't breathe properly, which is mostly exhaling.
And well, you know, like the phrase,
breath has blown my mind.
I was just going to say, I thought you were going to say it.
What's that?
Breath is life. Like, you know, the saying, breath is life, but it's so even more specific to childbirth because you're bringing life into this world. And so breath is so important.
It's so important. Well, it's fascinating. And I said this 10 episodes ago or whatnot, but like, I've been blown away by breath lately. And I mean, the Bible tells a story really interesting where it's like we were literally made from the earth, made from dust. And then we got the breath of life. So it correlates the separation from the animal kingdom or from dirt. The only separation we get in the narrative is breath. So you mean to tell me, I mean, there's so much, dare I say, like godness, power, spirit to unpack in breath. This is in the whole image of God language and whatnot. Like, there's a lot there that specifically in the our Western society, we've just forgotten about or don't pay attention to. Too weird or foo-fooey or whatever. Anyways, breath.
Amazing. Okay, but I want to sum up the pain, because this is probably, I put that question at the top just because it's probably the most asked question. Okay. Obviously, a lot of people are like, how did you have a birth without pain? And I would say just believing this can be possible, breath, that mental preparation.
Faith will move mountains.
Again, on a more practical level, listening to the Christian Hypnobirthing app, which I'll link it in the show notes again for you guys. But that was part of the mental prep. But also in birth, it was literally just these positive affirmations being spoken over me, and scriptures that pertain to childbirth being spoken over me, truths being spoken over me. I did not have that resource with the other kids. And I had instead these note cards that I literally had with all 3 kids. They made it from Ember's birth to Radley's birth. They're all sweaty and watery and everything that I'd written my own affirmations on. But I had to physically read those myself when I was in labor. Whereas this app, listening to it, it's this woman's voice. She's so, Tara, she's so calm and peaceful. She got this thick Australian accent. Phone, right? Yeah. And she just speaks this life and truth over you. And it is so amazing because, again, when you're filling your mind with that, you're like allowing yourself to accept it. And so your body is not going to be in this state of fight or flight or fear. Instead, it's going to be an accepting state, in a thankful state, because of all the things that you're listening to. Yeah. Okay,
what do they say? The ear is the womb, right? Like,
I haven't heard that one.
It's speaking of childbirth, like it's just an ancient saying, like the ear is the womb. Like that's where ideas, that's where things start from. Anyways. It's just a saying, but
I love it. Great.
Was Jer on board with doing a home birth or just going with the flow as you wanted?
Were you?
Yeah, I was totally on board.
What made you be on board?
Oh, I would say I got on board because just this journey we've been on, and second, just let's experience life. Like, why would I say no? Like, let's do this thing. Let's go on this adventure together. Like, if you brought a business idea to me, I'd be like, well, let's evaluate it, but like, heck yeah, let's jump in and do it. Mm-hmm. So you brought this to me, and it fell right in line with where I think we want to go, the story we want to write. Let's partner with God and see if this is possible. And also let's test things. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of stuff we were learning about breath, a lot of stuff we were learning about the spirit, a lot of stuff we were learning with communicating with God, and all of these fresh and new ways of experiencing God. And this was like a perfect opportunity to like test it. Mm-hmm. Like, let's actually experience the theory. And so why would I say no to that?
Yeah. Okay.
Why I would have is because of programming or fear.
And I think you, would you say that you ever had fear around our births with any of our kids?
I mean, they're big moments, they're weighty moments.
Like, when would you be?
I don't know if I've ever had like fear, but uncertainty has definitely been there. Like
when I had
there's like a low, there's like a low hum anxiety, just like, and then sometimes what ifs creep in, and those you got to really fly swat out of the way.
Okay. Cause the reason I think this is actually important, cause I think that a huge part of my ability to birth the way that I have is because of you, is because of your onboardness,
unwavering, masculinity.
No, just your ability to be on board with my desires for birth, and not just be on board with it and along for the ride, but to really like step into and learn alongside me in this.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
You listen to a lot of the Pain Free Childbirth videos with me, and you were like stoked on it. Jared loved falling asleep to the birthing app from 30 weeks
like,
on.
Hey, put that on, man. Let's vibe out and chill.
But also, like, this is where like I think that there is actually something truly to the fact that if you're married, you're one. Sure, the woman is having the baby, and that is a like crazy experience for her that a man will never get. But also, by nature of you being one and their presence being there physically with you, there is something spiritually about that, your connectedness. And if you have
we were unified,
discord between each other when you're going into birth, like, that would be really bad. Even if the discord isn't like, oh, we were just fighting before I went into labor. Even if the discord is more like, I don't actually like fully understand or agree with how you're doing this birth, or you're crazy to think that you can have a pain-free birth. If like you have husbands that are like that, I would say like do everything you can to educate them on and show them these resources and get them on board so that they are not just going into labor along for the ride. Because I think that they truly can be one of your best resources in labor if they are equipped, and if they are just as excited about it as you are, like Jared said. Yeah, and he was like excited about it because he learned about it, and then he was like, wait, this is an amazing thing that we get to experience together, and not only amazing thing for me to experience in childbirth, but I really believe that there was something that God had for Jeremy in that birth too. Like, I think that there's something specific that God can have for men as they support their wives bringing life into this world. And like, that is a transformative experience that's on a whole nother level too, like we can't just dismiss that is an experience too. So I would say, let's
cruise.
Yeah. Go ahead.
What did your family think when you told them you were doing a home birth?
My family this time, I mean, I almost did a home birth with Radley, but we weren't sure where we were going to be living, so I did the birth center. So they were more prepared.
They kind of know where,
and they kind of
into.
We've sort of brought them into our my world. Parents are okay.
Let me put
Don't
it this
get me
way.
wrong. My dad loves his Roundup.
But we rub off, I would say, more so than we're influenced.
Totally.
In
That's
sense.
A great way to say it. Yes.
Yeah.
So they were very supportive. Obviously, my mom was there, which was a first.
Yeah.
And then your parents, I don't know, your mom, what did she think?
She came. My mom came. I don't know if she was in the vlog, but
she wasn't there that day.
But she came right after Mira was born.
No.
Yes,
she came the next day.
Oh, that was the next day.
Yeah.
Oh.
But what did she think of us having a home birth? I don't remember.
Oh, fine. I mean,
yeah, I don't remember
whatever you
her.
guys want to do. Yeah, my mom's.
Amy's
my
not
mom's,
as much like shock factor.
No,
like
yeah,
she's
my
pretty.
mom's a little bit more.
She's pretty like. Yeah,
I mean, yeah,
I can do anything,
Totally.
and I can figure
She
anything
made
out.
us drink hose water and eat dirt for our immune system. Like she's not as she's crunchy in her own way.
Yeah.
But I will say, if your family is concerned, like that's fine. Let them be concerned.
Yeah.
But
and maybe don't have. I would say I think there was maybe a question. About
everyone is on
you
there.
Don't want to hold on. You don't want to have people in your birthing environment that aren't on board. So if you do have family members that aren't on board, I would say don't invite them to the birth, because there is something about, you want all the people that are there, all of your people that are going to be there supporting you at your birth to be for you to feel fully comfortable with, not self-conscious around, like the freedom to be just completely yourself with. And also you want them to be on board and be supportive, because you don't want them bringing in negative energies.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
And it's a real thing. So,
what was I going to say? I forgot. Okay, we're going to move on.
Yeah, next question.
When finding a midwife to do home birth, did you have a list of questions to ask them? Oh, yes. And did the midwife prepare you and Jeremy with what to do if she didn't make it in time?
Yes. Okay. So I actually got this list of questions from, I think, a friend a long time ago, but you can Google these, I'm sure. I'll put them in our show notes, our birth vlog. But basically, there's a list of questions that when you're interviewing a midwife, whether you're doing a midwife at a birth center or a midwife at a hospital or a midwife at home, I highly recommend asking them. I think it's like 10 or 15 questions. And it's basically like, hey, what's your protocol for transferring? Should I need to transfer? What's the most common reason that you do transfer people? Yeah. What do you do if the baby has shoulder dysplasia? Or what do you do in the case of a hemorrhage? What do you do if the baby's under distress? What do you do, like, in basically all these scenarios? What is your rate of transfer? How many births have you been at that this has happened to?
General questions.
And so it's a list of questions. Obviously, ask the ones that, if you don't feel like you need to ask those questions. But I would say, again, this is a huge opportunity for you to, if you have a spouse that's kind of hesitant, bring your spouse to that appointment specifically and have them be there as you're asking the midwife all of those questions, so that they can hear. It's super helpful, because all the fears that you kind of have in the back of your mind about home birth or birth center birth, they really are just kind of destroyed when you hear them answer the questions, because they have a plan for everything. Okay. I think a lot of people think like home birth or, I think sometimes people confuse home birth and free birth. Now, I'm not down on free birth, and someone did ask me, would you ever have a free birth? Free birth, for those that don't know, is just unassisted completely. No midwife, nothing, right? But I think people confuse those. We have had medical providers at our birth that are very trained and very skilled with all the medical gear and equipment, with lots of plans, with, a shot in our refrigerator in case Jeremy needed to give it to me before the midwife got there. Like, there is a plan in place. We're not just going into this being like, let's have a baby, right?
Yeah.
So
when you say you have no pain, how do you or did you feel contractions?
So I would describe them as intense but not painful. And basically what it feels like, actually, in the Pain-Free Childbirth course, she has you do this exercise where you hold an ice cube in your hand until it melts, or like a handful of ice cubes. Basically, like, it doesn't hurt, right? Like, you're holding a handful, but it can feel, there's a sensation there. You're obviously feeling a sensation, and maybe it's intense. It could be assimilated to all you cold plungers, right? You get in the cold plunge, it doesn't really hurt, but it's intense for a moment.
Someone might ask, like, how can you possibly do that? You
relax. It's the same thing with cold plunging, right? They say don't get an intense up. You gotta breathe.
It makes me think of, like, pain is a state of consciousness, and I think we're gonna get into some of this, but like, there are people that walk over coals. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And not only does it not hurt, but they don't burn. Yeah. And it's because they've been able to access this, dare I say, this like alternate reality. It's real for them, but just not experienced by many. Mm-hmm. And they're able to do things that seem crazy.
And we can study this now with science, which is really cool. Yeah, so if you think we're crazy,
totally.
That's the crazy thing about this modern day.
Yeah, we now know, like, biblically, states of consciousness, earth, water, wind, and fire correlation. Now we actually have frequency patterns, and we can, with EMGs,
EKGs
or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like we can
Study the
actually
brain.
measure, what is it? Alpha, beta, theta, delta states of consciousness. And like, we know what those frequencies look like, and we know what's happening in them. So it's just like, it's a whole new game. It's what science has allowed us to now confirm or deny about what the spiritual community has been trying to communicate for centuries is fascinating. That's what gets me jazzed. Okay.
There should be a midwife doula.
No, this is just one application, right? When you have no, okay. So did we answer that? Yeah. They're intense. What are all the things?
Oh no, hold on. Wait, did we answer that?
Yeah. What are all?
How do you feel? Okay, they feel like pressure is what they feel like. Okay, that's what all my contractions with Mirabella, they felt like.
Well, and let's be clear,
this intense muscle kind of tightening.
They could have been
a muscle contraction.
They could have been
Pressure.
really painful though. Like if you jumped into fear, you would have started feeling pain, I think.
Or stop breathing.
Tensing up.
Stop trusting.
It would have gotten
body.
painful and obnoxious and really, really, really hard, right?
I mean, with Radley, I would say most of my labor with him wasn't painful. It was more painful because I had some back labor with him, and that caused me to have some fear because I had back labor with Ember.
Yeah,
and it was a lot longer.
I remember that sucked bad. And we were nervous about that because of my back this time. It would have been difficult to hold you up.
That's true.
Okay, did Ember...
You didn't have to do any holding this time.
I did not. What are all the things a doula or midwife does or assist with home birth? Did you have a doula this time?
Okay, so with Ember and Bodhi, I had a doula at the hospital. I highly recommend this if you're going to try to do a physiological birth, unmedicated, unintervened with birth at the hospital, have a doula. Because that way your spouse can be the person that is with you the whole time, never leaves your side. And the doula can be your support person that goes and fills your water bottles or puts your oils in your diffuser or communicates your desires for birth to the staff, the hospital staff, the nurses and labor delivery nurses.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend a doula in that environment. I didn't feel like I needed one.
For us, it made sense.
Yeah, and I would recommend it for anybody. I mean, I just think it's great to have another support person there that is going to be with you from another reason from start to finish. So like if there's a hospital shift change, right, which typically happens every 12 hours or whenever it happens.
Yeah, she stays the whole course.
They've been there with you the whole time. It was just super helpful to have that extra support person. With Radley's birth and Mira's birth, I had a friend, not a doula, but just a friend who was a support person, kind of played the same role.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like you need that as much with the midwives because you're not having to communicate. Your midwifery care is very different in that they know your desires for birth. I mean, every single one of my appointments, they have allotted up to an hour. I don't use that much time, but my midwife or my appointments with Bodhi and Ember, like at the hospital that I was going to, were like 10 minutes. They only had 10 minutes to see me. Mm-hmm. And so I think just having that, they know like what you want and desire, you're not having to communicate that to them when you go into labor. And so that kind of removes that need for a doula, but go ahead. Oh, and the differences between, someone asked, didn't they say that? The differences between the two?
No.
So doula doesn't have any sort of formal training. They're basically just a support person. They can have some sort of training, but like it's technically just like being at births, but midwives are, I mean, they're right up there with OBs. They're just basically certified a little bit differently, certified nurse midwife. So
did you have any concerns leading up to your first home birth, and how did you prepare Ember?
Did I have any concerns?
Did she have questions?
Did I have any concerns? Did I have any concerns? I actually don't really think I had. We
were pretty prepared, I would say.
I would say my biggest concern was
we had rehearsed, we had done
the
all the
juggling of like, whenever I go into labor, who's going to be with the kids? And then will Ember be able to be there because she really wanted to be there?
Yeah, I think we knew that it would happen fast too because
would the midwife get there?
We weren't going anywhere. So our only concern was the distance the midwife was away and knowing that like you were going to probably cruise because you have to stay in that. Once you're in that state and you start to scroll through the layers of consciousness, like it's gonna there's no slowing it down. And the second you tried to slow it down was your only painful contraction.
Totally.
So we knew it would happen fast was kind of our concern. And would she get there in time?
Yeah. And then with Ember, what was the thing about Ember?
Did she have how did you prepare her? Did she have any questions?
Ember. So I asked Ember if she wanted to be there. And she was super excited about it. I don't think she fully understood it when I asked her. And so then we actually spent a lot of time watching birth videos together. So I kind of showed her like, look, Ember, there's a lot of different ways this can go. You know, I showed her nothing scary, but just like women that were super vocal, women that were super quiet, like different environments, different people there. Because I don't know how it's going to go, but I think it was a great learning opportunity for me to kind of show her like, look, mommy does not know. I'm trusting in this experience that, you know, the Lord is going to go before us and that my body is going to instinctively be able to do this and all of those things. But also, you know, there is something that curveballs happen and it could go differently. And so I wanted to prepare her for that too. And I feel like she was pretty prepared. She asked me often in bed, can we watch another birth video?
Yeah.
So she was pretty excited about it and really wanted us to wake her up. And every morning was so disappointed, like the week leading up to my due date, that she still didn't get woken up in the middle of the night to see the baby be born. But yeah, go ahead. Next question.
Okay. Next question. This is a good one. This is a good one. Distinguishing between prayer and manifesting when you wrote out your the birth that you wanted.
Okay, I'm going to let you answer, but I'll describe the writing out the birth that I wanted.
Wow, you're going to let me answer?
Yeah, because that's your question, right? Okay. So with this birth, I actually wrote out exactly like my dream birth, basically. Obviously holding it loosely, obviously knowing, you know, it probably wouldn't go that way. But I just, to get that out of my brain and on paper, like I visualized it. Right? It's something that athletes do, right? We visualize things that we want to happen.
Practice.
Call it manifesting, call it visualizing, call it writing it down. But anyways, I did that with this birth. So I wrote out exactly like when I hoped to go into labor, what time of day, the environment, what I would smell, see, taste, hear, all of that. And I just tried to, as detailed as I could, write it all down.
Yeah.
Now you explain the difference between... Can Christians manifest?
I mean, I think with all questions like this, it's just super important to go back to two things. One, definitions, and learned or programmed beliefs or defining of them. So it's like, first of all, it's hard to answer questions like this because your definition of prayer and my definition of prayer might be different. Your definition of manifestation, my definition of manifestation might be different. So what's the difference between prayer and manifestation? I mean, your intention, your belief structure, there's a lot of things. But the second thing, real quick, is what did Jesus teach? Like, what did he say? What did he do? And so there's two verses here that I literally just pulled up while you were talking because they came to mind that I just think is interesting to think about. So first one, First one is Mark 11:24. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. So that verse,
that right there is,
that verse literally says, believe as it is so, and it will be.
Which I think people that manifesting.
Hold on, that is the exact definition of manifesting.
Yeah.
Now, where it gets complicated, I think, is people tend, like, so the law of attraction is, you know, is it Kabbalah, Hermetic law or something? But it's one of those laws of the universe that has been generally understood by my understanding, every culture throughout all of time, and every single person tends to try to point to that law in some sense. So, you know, the difference I think is like when you ask for it in your own strength, first of all, I think you've already lost the plot because then your ego, you're living through ego, or as Jesus would call it, the flesh of the world, instead of the spirit of God or into God. And so, you know, your intention matters and where your center is that is asking. So again, back to like the layers of ego and like who is the one looking through who you think you are, because you're not your name, you're not your ethnicity, you're not where you're from. Those are all just things that have been added to something or someone. So, you know, we are all the awareness that is aware. that we have built up egos and identities that we identify with and all this stuff. Now, Jesus says, don't identify with that. Actually, you have to crucify that and then be reborn in spirit. That's actually the proper way to do this. And then when you're there in spirit and you believe as it shall be so, it shall be done. And he, you know, the word used here, the word that's been interpreted throughout the time is prayer. So
I think it's a great verse to support it. I also think that manifesting gets a bad rap because I think Christians immediately, like the way that she asked the question made me think like, I'm just one quick thought. But
sorry.
The way that she asked the question made me think like, she's literally worried about, she's choosing to not write down or visualize her birth. And again, sorry, person asking a question, maybe I'm not like coming at you, but it sounds like you're saying, oh my gosh, I'm too nervous to write down what I would want my birth to be like, because that could be manifesting.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like Christians miss out.
Yeah. Because they're so obsessed with labels and not being associated, and that's of the world. Like that's, So the second thing is, but seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all things shall be added unto you. Matthew 6:33. So again, prayer and manifesting, two words that have almost identical definitions, but are, I should say, used by two different groups of people, more so or less. And it all depends on your center in which you are asking. So if your true heart's desire is God's kingdom, is the kingdom of heaven, God's will be done first and foremost on earth as it is in heaven. Like if that's the goal, then anything that happens, like nothing bad can ever happen to you because you've submitted to God's will, and everything that comes is either a lesson or, you know, it's a lesson or a blessing. And so your center in which you ask, I think, is the primary, distinguishing factor for that question, in my opinion. And you know, the Christian traditions called it prayer. A lot of other people have called it manifestation. It's been wrapped up under the law of attraction for literally centuries and centuries and centuries. And so there's nuance between them, but it's a fascinating topic and great question.
Yeah.
Seek ye first, but at the end of the day, seek ye first. What did Jesus teach? And seek ye first the kingdom of God, and the rest shall be added to you. Love that. Okay, ready, babe? Move on. Hope that was clear, and either
not clear, but just get you thinking on it.
Yeah, hopefully I got you thinking on it. Like God's way has got to be
the MO with us.
Yeah, God's way has got to be the core desire, right? And then you give it all to God, but that doesn't mean you let go necessarily of all your, like, this is what prayer is. Prayer is asking God for things. And it's not just all it is. I believe your entire life is your prayer, your thoughts, your deeds.
We talked about that on the podcast.
Remember every single thing you do is a prayer. The only question we really get is to what or who is your prayer to. And so God is oneness and sin would be ego or separateness. We will get back to the conversation in just a minute, but first, a quick cheers from the sponsor of this episode, LMNT. We have been drinking LMNT for about a year now. Love it. All of the packs have been awesome. We love a lot of the flavors. Discovered these sparkling waters. Fell in love with them. These are great little treats. You might be wondering why I have a mug, though, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. LMNT helps you stay hydrated without any of the extra sugar or ingredients that a lot of companies like to put in their drinks. LMNT does not. Electrolyte deficiency can be a cause of headaches, brain fog, fatigue, and just overall general weakness. And actually the intake we're supposed to have for electrolytes or for salt is 2 to 3 times more than what the current government standard actually is. So that's why one of their things is more salt, not less. But you might be wondering why I have a mug, and that's because for a limited time, LMNT is bringing back their chocolate medley mix. I know, I was skeptical at first too. There's 3 flavors: chocolate raspberry, chocolate mint, and chocolate chai. It's basically hot chocolate, right? You put it in hot water. So now I've got like a healthy electrolyte, hydrating hot chocolate We mix the chocolate chai with our milk in the morning. So it's kind of like a chai latte of sorts, but you're hydrating at the same time, or you're getting your electrolytes in anyways. Haven't tried the mint yet. Excited to do that next. Anyways, limited time only. And if you want to just give them a try, with our code lmnt.com/rolloff, you'll get a free sample pack. So if you know you want to buy electrolytes and you know you want to get your salt in, but you're not sure about the chocolate flavors, just add it on as a free sample pack, or go all in on the chocolate flavors and try one of the others. They also do no questions asked return policy. So if you don't like it for any reason, literally just give it to someone and they'll just refund you your money. So that's awesome for them to do that as well. lmnt.com/rolloff to get your free sample pack. And with that, back to the episode. Okay, moving on. Yep, got it. Did you drink Ningxia while pregnant?
Yes, I drank Ningxia with, I think, Bodhi, Radley, and Mira. It's a Young Living drink that I drank through all my pregnancies. Really, really good. Lots of testimonials to support with a healthy placenta. And there's dozens and dozens of testimonials. I think I actually have like a blurb still on my Instagram page about it. But yes, I did still drink it. I don't sell Young Living anymore, but we just a quick clarification since we're on the topic. We do still use their products.
We use it.
We still use I buy all my oils from there.
I take a swig of Ningxia every day.
Jared's better, but I'm not good about drinking it now. I kind of stopped drinking it.
I think
after
like 4 years,
birth, but
I've almost every day taken a swig of Ningxia.
It's good. I love it. The kids still ask for it. They love it. So just because we stopped selling it doesn't mean that we stop using the products. Like, I've loved and used their products for years, and I will continue to buy them and use them. So,
what was the most difficult part of your labor?
I would say the most difficult part was for me is just that waiting period of going into labor, waiting to go into labor.
Yeah. The anticipation.
Not knowing that anticipation. It's just so hard. It's just like a hard tension of when you're really close to the end, you're really pregnant and you're so excited and you're just kind of going through the motions, preparing yourself. And in this instance, like, this is one thing that was really hard for me. I was every single night cleaning our entire house, making sure the outfit that I wanted to wear was like clean and washed and everything was put away. Just making sure stuff was good for when a bunch of people came into our house, like there wasn't just toys everywhere and the kitchen was good. And it was easy for like the birth team to access stuff. We had like a snack table set out. I wanted to make sure that the washer wasn't full of laundry so that they could change my bedding and put it in there. Like just all those kinds of things. So I felt like I was really staying extra on top of like the household care things. Yeah. And then feeling this tension of just waiting. Like that really is the hardest part for me. And then once you know you're in labor, and this is my last thing to say on it. Once I know that I'm in labor,
it's go
like
time.
I'm game and I love it.
Totally.
And I feel like that's kind of been like always a thing for me in my life. Like I used to always get the most nervous for my races when I was a runner in high school and college. I'd get the most nervous like the week leading up or the night before. And then the day of, and when the gun went off, like I was not nervous. I was so excited. I think I just am wired that way. Maybe it's an Enneagram 8 thing. Maybe it's a whatever. What's that new personality thing that's all the rage now lately? Thing. Anyways.
While you were talking, I feel like the Spirit told me to say one thing about manifestation and prayer. And that is just
good job listening.
Yeah. Just to re-clarify. And that is that, we prefer to use, obviously, the word prayer because I think it identifies the crucial aspect, and that is a submission to God. And I would say more or less, when people use the word manifestation, it's more of like a you, yourself activity. You create your own reality. And I do think that there's truth in that, but I would prefer a more language that clearly identifies a more submitted heart posture. Mm-hmm. But I think where a lot of Christians lose the ball is they throw things out to God and then they drop it. Like they don't really follow, I would say, the rules, the rules of the universe, like when you, the word prayer can tend to make God just this person, single, God in the sky that like, it has his thing and makes it's just, I don't know if it's the right image when he's so, you can't comprehend him. He's everything and everywhere and all the things and outside time. So there's like, it's way more than I think that just that we like to box everything into these clean, simple programs. And it's like, it's neat and clean and I've got my ticket punched. And so I'm going to live in this lane. And I'm just trying to say it's so much bigger and so much more nuanced and beautiful and complex. And the second you have it figured out, you absolutely don't. But I just wanted to make that clear. So
neither do we.
Yeah, neither do we. I like to use prayer though, because it reminds me that like I'm choosing to be a slave to Christ. Versus the word manifestation can tend to lean, I think it can tend to lean a little bit on the other side, but they both have their place in the conversation. But for a Christian to say like that's completely wrong. Well, it's like, well, Mark, what are you doing when you're praying? Like, so this we should probably, it's an entire conversation. I just felt like I needed to make that clear distinction. Like, anyways,
I had one thought while you're talking about that, people that make gratitude lists, right? Yeah. Maybe you're not thankful in that moment, but if you make a gratitude list every day, it's kind of like a form of manifesting, right?
Yeah. Well, it changes your chemical structure in your brain.
And so
people that do gratitude lists are proven to be happier people.
Right. So would you call that a spiritual discipline?
Gratitude?
Yeah. Could be.
Well, it's not, but it could, I mean, yeah.
But the point is,
it's
a practice that you're forming into your life. It's a rhythm that you're putting into your life, that the goal is to be more aligned with God. But I think sometimes people that are in the manifesting labeled camp are much better at doing that than Christians, because Christians are afraid of the labels, so they won't do it because they think, oh, God's not going to like that, so I won't make a gratitude list, or I won't visualize or manifest or any of that, or I'm not going to believe that people that come in my room are going to change the energy of this environment, right? And so it's like they throw the baby out with the bathwater and they miss out again.
Totally.
Okay. Next question. We really should do a podcast.
We should. I have a lot of thoughts, and it needs nuanced clarity, and because a lot of you could say something and people could run with it the wrong way. But I know. What's the most difficult part of life? Rank your births easiest to most difficult. I don't think you need to do that. Did you change your mind?
I would say, though, my most difficult was by far my first, which is true for most people, most women. Your first is And if you had a challenging first birth experience, just know it is so much easier with every birth. When your body has done it, your body knows what to do, and it will do it more efficiently. And you will trust the process more because you've been through it and you know those sensations now. When it's your first, you have, I feel like, just inevitably more fear because you don't know what you're getting yourself into. You don't know what it's going to feel like. You don't know all of those sensations, and you haven't experienced it.
And especially if something unfortunate happened in your first one.
Right.
It can just add to the fear and the difficulty in doing the next one. But was the child watching traumatized? Was the child watching traumatized?
Oh yeah, I saw that. Was the child that was watching traumatized, as in Ember?
Yes.
No. It's so funny when people think that. Well, it's just funny that people think that watching birth is traumatizing. Like, it's the most miraculous, beautiful thing. And I think that's one of the things that's just a problem with our culture, is the fact that people are even asking those types of questions. It's like, that is why people are afraid to give birth, because people have that type of mindset.
If by traumatizing you mean they'll remember it forever, yes.
In the best way.
Yeah. Did you do the hypnobirthing tracks during birth or only in pregnancy?
During birth. I played it when I knew I was in labor, and then all the way through, like the first hour after she was born, in that golden hour, I just kept it going because it's just so calming and peaceful. But I started listening to the tracks from 30 weeks on. It's an app that you pay for monthly, but when you get her course, you get the first month of the app for free. So if you wanted to get the course 1 month before your due date, you could technically get the course, go through it, and listen to the 1 month's worth of the tracks and have it.
And don't you have a discount for people?
You have a discount. I'll put it in the show notes. I think it's ODGE for 20% off.
Yeah, 20%. Wow. Tips on pushing out a baby with a big head. What are the pros and cons of a birth tub?
Tips on pushing a baby out with a big head. So I think that there's a lot of misconception around that. Big babies and big heads. Plenty of women that are tiny birth huge babies with no complications. Like your body, I truly believe, is capable of birthing the babies that you have. Of course there are exceptions, and I am not dogging on medical intervention when it is necessary. I just think it's often not necessary. And often a lot of places will put that fear in you that, oh, you're going to have a bigger baby, or, you know, how big was your husband or whatever. And then you get these thoughts in your head of like, oh, my baby's going to be so big and I'm not going to be able to push my baby out vaginally.
Or it's going to be more painful.
And I mean, my babies, I'm not a big woman, but I've had 9-pound babies, 9'1", 9'2". And also Radley was born in his embryonic sac. So he's born in what's called on call. So I birthed a huge head when Radley was born because I birthed the entire baby in one contraction. So arguably, like, you know, like that is different.
Jeez, babe, you're
totally
amazing.
Different because there's not friction in that because I had like the lubrication of the embryonic sac. But I think that's a fear that a lot of women get in their head that doesn't really need to be there. And then what was the second part of that question?
What are the pros and cons of birth tub?
Oh, birth tub. So I will say biggest pro of the birth tub is delivering in it. Delivering in the birth tub is absolutely incredible. I wish that I could have had that with my hospital births, but the hospitals here don't let you deliver in the tub. I had to get out with Ember and walk down the hallway when I was in transition.
I remember that. Brutal.
And with Bodhi, I didn't have enough time to even fill the tub because he was so fast. By the time we got to the hospital, they're like, you're 8 centimeters. But with Radley, I loved the tub so much with Ember. I knew I wanted to give birth in the tub because I didn't have the chance to do that with Bodhi, and they won't let you at the hospital. So I wanted to deliver in the tub in water. I wanted to have a water birth. And I had also just been learning a lot about water and like babies live in water in the womb for so long. And for them to be born into the water is just like a more natural, peaceful ease into the world. Like just a peaceful, calm experience. And anti-gravity for me, like my hips to be floating, I tend to like to be on all fours to be able to lean over the edge and have that water. The water is warm. That's another thing that women really need in childbirth, to feel safe and not get shaky or nauseous or whatever, is to feel warm. So the warm water was really good. But also I will say, with the water birth thing, being able to, you don't want to get in the tub too early. So con would be, I'm in labor, get in the tub, stay in the tub. That can actually slow down your labor. You want to be up and moving around and doing different positions until you're more towards the end of your labor. So you really want to try to wait to get in. Plus then the tub can get cold. You're having to add warm water. So you kind of want to save the tub as like your last resort. Like you want to go through all those things and move and get your baby in really good positioning by lots of movement. Because in hindsight, I do think with Radley, I got to the birth center. I was so excited to be in the tub that I just got in the tub. And I think had I moved around a little bit more, I think my birth did slow down with Radley because I got in the tub and I was just comfy there. And I think getting yourself a little bit uncomfortable to get in different positions is actually something that helps your labor go faster.
Did you have an emergency backup plan, Rex for stalled or failure to progress labor?
Rex for stalled or Rex for stalled or failure to progress labor, I would say movement is one. Nipple stimulation is huge. And also I would say that's huge for helping to naturally induce labor. That's a really big one. Lunges and side walking or walking up and down stairs is a really big one.
While doing nip stim. Boom. Baby's coming.
Jared did some nip stim. He liked that part of it. What was the other question? Sex is another good one for naturally inducing labor.
Did you have an emergency backup
plan? Yes. We had a plan for if I hemorrhage. We had a plan for if the baby had any sort of distress. We had the emergency medical bags all at our house weeks before my due date. So everything is all like there and prepared. They talk you through all of that before. And we also had, because I did hemorrhage with Bodhi, what we did with Radley was this thing called active third stage management, where they give you a shot of Pitocin in your leg after you deliver the baby, before you deliver the placenta, to sort of help expel your placenta. I think there was a question in there on this. I'm going to hit on this really quick just to knock out that question with one bullet since I'm on it. But just the hemorrhaging thing, because I get a lot of questions about that. And I think a lot of you guys ask me questions about that because I did hemorrhage really bad with Bodhi. And if you go back a few years and listen to the podcast episode, Bodhi, gosh, almost 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I hemorrhaged really bad. And I had what they thought was maybe some trailing membranes or pieces of my placenta that broke off. I didn't actually have that.
I remember.
They thought that I had that. And they had to give me what's called a cervical sweep. After they had stitched me because I tore, because he came out so fast and was really big. And there was not the best staff. I would say of all my birthing experiences, that was the worst
Staffed, yeah. Bummer.
people that I had there. So I think that really contributed because I had the most amount of fear right after he was born than any of the other kids, because they're telling me I'm bleeding and something's wrong, and they're actually telling me like we may need to go give you
and
a blood
I remember
infusion
they were
stuff.
like
They're
rushing around,
super instilling of fear in me. They were not calm and peaceful.
very-
I am not dogging on. I had amazing labor and delivery nurse with Ember. Okay, amazing midwife that delivered Ember. Amazing at the hospital.
Yeah, but the people there matter is what you're saying.
People there
the
matter.
Energy there matters.
I mean, you don't have control of that at the hospital. With the midwives, you have control over that because you pick your midwife and you have them. They're the one that's going to be there, or the team of the couple that you pick, or whatever. The two that are on call. So, but with Bodhi, the hemorrhaging thing. So a lot of people ask me like, what was your plan for hemorrhaging with Radley? And weren't you afraid that you were going to hemorrhage again since you did and you're a redhead and blah, blah, blah. So with Radley, our plan was to do this shot in my leg of Pitocin. And basically it's super effective. I think it's like 60 or 70% effective at helping women to contract back their uterus, to contract back down and to stop the bleeding, and to help deliver the placenta. It worked like a charm with Radley. Okay. Maybe it worked like a charm with Radley. Maybe that's what worked. Or maybe all of the other things about Radley's birth helped me to not hemorrhage, like me feeling safe, me feeling calm, me feeling at peace, people not rushing around, the people that are there not giving me any reason to fear or have concern about myself or the baby.
Like your body just did its thing. It was able to release. Again, breathing out is the release of life, because we can't hold on to our own life. We have to let it go. We have to give it back to God. And the second, think about it this way: when someone quick tangent. When someone like scares you or anything uncertain happens, what do? You take a breath in because you want to keep your life. But so what's built into our physiology,
you hold on instead of let go.
The breath of life. Yeah, exactly. What's built in our physiology is, but you try to kill yourself by holding your breath. You can't. It's because
oh gosh, no. You can't talk about that.
Why?
You're going to give that whole?
No, it's because life conquers death. It's because life is the greater force. But they have to work together. But anyways.
Oh, I thought you were going to give some scientific explanation of why you can't hold your breath to death.
No. Okay, I'll stop.
Okay, no. How'd you get on that though?
I just got on that because you're talking about when I think of Rad, when I think of Bodhi and I think of Rad, and the two differences, like, you being tense at all, like your body just wasn't stretched or wasn't able to do what it needed to do. But physiologically with Rad and with Mira, and with Emma, but like you might have been way more calm.
Yeah.
And it just
the mental preparation, again, this goes back to all the things that I've been saying, okay? All the things I've been saying actually matter. Like all that preparation, the visualization, the prayers,
speaking of which,
the mindset change, all of that prepared me for my birth with Radley. And so sure, maybe the shot did work. And again, this is where I'm not one of those people that's like, no Western medical interventions, right? Like I did the shot. I could have easily been like, let's try to not do it, right? Let's
what shot?
The Pitocin shot,
Pitocin,
active third stage management. I could have easily just been like, I think I'm going to be fine this time. Like new environment. I think there were some things that went wrong there that aren't going to go wrong here, and just go into it trusting that I'm not going to do that. I think I could have totally done that, and maybe I wouldn't have hemorrhaged, but I did decide to do the shot. With Mirabella, I had zero fear of hemorrhaging. Zero. Was not a concern. We had the stuff in our fridge in case you needed to give it to me. And the plan was to give it to me.
I think we did.
But we also were kind of like, well, maybe we won't. Like if it goes okay, like if I
you being a redhead and given the history.
But I want to say one thing that I think did drastically like this is just a theory, okay? This is my theory.
Theory time.
Just a theory. With Bodhi, I watched this show leading up to his birth that was super graphic, violent show. And I was watching it when I went into labor with Bodhi. Like because I think I said this on the last podcast. the only time I ever watch TV is when I'm waiting for a baby or right after I have a baby. We watched a super graphic show. Going into Radley's birth, we watched like very light. Oh, we were watching Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
I was dying laughing. Like we don't ever watch shows like that.
Yeah.
We were laughing. And then with this baby, I realized some stuff going through the pain-free childbirth course, like what you watch matters, what you listen to matters, what you're filling your mind with,
all subconscious
and
programming.
what your baby is listening to in here, all of pregnancy, all of that matters. Just like what you're putting, what food you fuel your body with, all of your pregnancy and labor matters. Okay, go back to the Audible thing that you said. So I do have a theory that did play a part. I think that I had stress or cortisol in my body from this show that we were watching for nights on end going into labor. Instead,
I believe
with
it.
Radley and we're with Mira, I'm listening to this hypnobirthing app that's just speaking scripture over me to this beautiful calming music every night instead of listening to like people die.
You're relaxing instead of watching.
So I would just, if you're pregnant, just be mindful of what you're watching and try to watch things that are funny or peaceful. Okay.
Totally, babe. Love it. Great rant. Okay. How to prevent hemorrhaging, you got that. On call, you got that. What were the top things to help prepare you for home birth? I feel like we covered that.
What were the top things to help prepare you?
Mental. We've talked about the mental thing a lot.
Yeah, but practically those courses, I cannot say enough how helpful those were. And someone did ask me, I think in there, like if you had to pick one, which one would you pick? Because they're expensive. I would do the Christian hypnobirthing app 1,000%. Like it is so helpful. The app, that's not a course.
Yeah.
But then the app girl has a course, and then there's the pain-free childbirth course. Christian hypnobirthing course is like $99. And you can get it for 20% off with my code. And the first month of the app is free with that.
Wow.
So it's a more affordable option. Pain-free childbirth course, I would say, is way more comprehensive, extremely valuable and helpful, especially if you have a husband or if you geek out on the science side of things of childbirth. It is amazing. Like I highly recommend it if you can do it and afford it. I would recommend that course, but it is $400, so it's more expensive.
But do you have a code?
I have a code for that, and I think it's for 10% off.
Awesome.
So we'll put that in the show notes. But those two things, super, super helpful.
Sorry to interrupt. What does it mean when Jared says he caught the baby? What if he missed?
Did you miss?
I did not miss. I caught the baby. Touchdown.
That was your first time catching, right?
That was the first time, yes, touching. And were you? Oh my gosh, it's so much better in the tub. It really is. For me, I remember I couldn't.
Because the poop goes away and is floating over there.
No.
And it's not like on the bed sheet.
No, it's because it's so graphic. I remember how lightheaded I got with
the other kids.
With Ember and Bodie.
I
was close to fainting. Two of the nurses looked over and they're like, he needs some water now. And I'm literally like, it's hard to like, it's just so graphic, and I don't do well with blood or needles and stuff. And so, but with this, it's like, it was no problem.
You're under the water.
I could be there,
so
water.
There's some blur.
Yeah, it's really, my arms are just around, and you'll see in the vlog, the midwife was there as well, but I was the one that holding her head and I felt her come out. It was my left hand, I think. And
well, you were holding her head up for an entire contraction because she didn't come out in one.
Yeah, like that's crazy.
Or in between, like we were just sitting talking, waiting. Your head was just out.
I have a buddy that's caught all of his kids non-water births. All three of them, I believe. And I'm just like, dude, you're insane. So I'm glad I got to do it with Mira. It was really cool and special experience. Mm-hmm. I handed it up to Audrey.
Her
up to Audrey. Okay, free birth. If you had another baby, we already did that. Can you share?
Would you do a free birth? Never say never.
Oh, yeah.
Probably not.
I think if we had like a doula there, someone that's been to a lot of births, a friend.
I don't think I would. I mean, I've done so many things that I said I would never do, but I don't think
I would be open to it. It's another adventure. If it made sense.
Now, you've gone so extreme that Jeremy's in the free birth camp now.
If it made sense and the risk analysis checked out. Does insurance reimburse you for home birth? Can you share in one place all the different things you did to prepare?
Those are two different questions.
I know.
Okay.
I'm trying to bunch them because we're
Insurance
cruising.
is a matter of who your midwife is. So if your midwife is covered under your insurance, then you'll be covered.
Great.
That's
easy,
the
quick.
main thing
Next,
with
can you share in one place all the different things you did to prepare during pregnancy? They are in the description and the show notes and on the blog.
Yeah, I will do a blog of all of the like the questions that you can ask your midwife and just like
that's gonna be
resources and links to a bunch of other stuff that we have that I had on hand. Like they say like have a cookie sheet.
I guess when this
have
comes
a
out,
pooper scooper and have a plastic shower curtain that you layer in between your bed sheets so you can have nice cozy sheets on your bed that you sleep in leading up to birth. Then you can get in bed after you have the baby with those sheets. They get bloody. Then you take those sheets off, take off the shower curtain, and you have a made bed. Right.
Okay. All the tricks.
And I think someone asked in there, like, what do you do with after birth stuff when there's no staff of people to do all the things for you for the next, because, you know, people go to the hospital, they check in, they stay there for a couple days. And so you have people coming and checking in on you and changing your bed sheets and doing everything for you. And you don't have your kids there, right? Yeah. We had our baby and all of our kids are there in the bedroom with us in an hour. And there's no one, you know, everyone left after the midwife teams. They clean everything up for you. So they cleaned the birth pool. They cleaned our room. They started laundry. My friend helped a ton with that. My mom was there to help with our kids and making us food. We had food for them. They ate and had coffee. It was the morning time and hung out for a little while, checked on the baby again, and then left after maybe like 2 or 3 hours after she was born. Yeah. But this is where like your village is so important because home birth does take a lot more preparation. You aren't at the hospital for a couple of days where someone's watching your kids while you rest and recover. Like you need someone to help you with your kids. You need someone to help you with your house. You need meals, right? We're not calling the hospital cafeteria to get meals brought up to us. So like we freezer prepped meals. We had a meal delivery chain. Like it does take, you know, so you have to consider that when you're considering what you want out of birth or what is the best plan for your family. You have to consider all those variables. And I don't know what those variables are for you, right? So this plan was different for me, but like maybe your husband cannot take time off work. And so you don't know when you're going to go into labor. And so you need to have someone that's going to be there for you. You know, a hospital makes more sense. I don't know, right? Like everyone has to do what's best for them. I loved my home birthing experience and I wish that I would have done it with more of my kids.
Yeah. But we weren't there yet. Our journey.
But we just weren't there yet. So I hope this nudges you sooner if you're kind of on the fence. But again, you have to do what's best for you and what makes you feel the most peaceful, and the most safe.
This question kind of makes me sad that someone would ask this, but they just clearly don't know us. How do you feel about women who have to have hospital births?
Well, I had hospital births.
Yeah,
but also you mean like because they have a high risk pregnancy probably or something I think where that question they have to be there.
I think that question is coming from like you must be judging people who did this.
Yeah, which is so untrue. So just also like, so you guys know, I have one personal life friend that had given a home birth. Two. One lives across the country from me. But like close friends, right? Like I know of people that have had home births, but like all my friends here, none of them have home births or know how they work. They just don't know.
We're this couple.
Nor have they had birth center, but like and some of them have had to have hospital births and like completely understand and like praise God for that, right? Like that is I'm so glad that we have the medical intervention that is necessary when it needs to be for the baby and for the mom and for myself if I were to need that. So I am not dogging on that. And I don't know. I hope people just don't think that way.
Yeah. I mean,
I really think a lot of people in the crunchy community.
That's projection though. A lot of that.
That like, gets projected on us in a way that's just not true.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is to ask a question like that would be
right.
When you're saying someone else might be judgy, you're the one that's actually judgy. True. Judging. It's a projection thing. But anyways, yeah, everyone's got their story, got their journey, and
all birth is beautiful. Like if you have to have a cesarean, and even in those birth courses, they have modules on cesarean. Like you might be like, what? How would they be supportive of that? Oh, well, shocker.
Yeah. Funny. Did you avoid tearing? Yes.
No.
Oh, really? One stitch?
No. Yeah.
How do they do cardiac testing?
I basically tore like the same with all the kids, just in the same spot. How do I do what?
Cardiac testing and hearing.
Oh, for the baby. Like a lot of people ask, like, how do you do all the baby tests and stuff afterwards? So they still do the newborn screening, like heel prick thing to test for, like the serious stuff, PKU and all those things. They do that at home birth. They still do that. They listen to the baby's heart rate. They weigh your baby in like this sling thing. They do all of that normal stuff. Someone asked about bilirubin. Like, how do they do bilirubin? Well, you can check your baby. You can visually check to see if they're going to be jaundiced. So, and if they were, it was a concern that you just call.
It's just light,
the
right?
hearing.
Isn't it light? UV light fixes bilirubin, or what is that?
Yeah, well, that's one of the light literally is what helps to heal them. Yes. So that's also a fascinating tangent that we could talk about.
Photobiomodulation.
But, yeah, I haven't had jaundice with any. None of my babies have been jaundiced, so it was never like really a concern. But that is, you just watch for it. And then the hearing screening thing, you like, this is where it's like there's just a little bit more like prep and planning and scheduling and things that you have to keep track of, because you have to go to a specific like hearing clinic. Like, I had to take all our kids that weren't born at the hospital to this hearing clinic to do the newborn hearing screening when they were like a couple weeks old. And then you do have to submit all your own birth certificate. Social security number, birth certificate things. Hopefully your husband does that for you because you have enough things to think about. Anyways,
she'll be alive.
Continue.
Soon. She'll be alive to the state. Although we got 3 more questions. Is transition or pushing more painful? Pushing.
Okay, well, Mirabella's birth was not painful.
I guess they're different.
And the only pain was the contraction before I started pushing. So it's kind of both, I guess, with that. But with the other ones, I would say transition. I would say transition. I liked pushing with Bodhi
because it gave you something to do.
Mira. I liked pushing a lot because I knew I was at the end, and it gave me something to do and focus on. And for my personality and my body, like, I liked that I could like roar those babies out. Like, it was just, it gave me something to do. And with Radley, it was a little bit different because it was so, I did not feel like I was pushing. I didn't have the pushing sensation because he was still in the sack. My water hadn't broke. And so I just felt this, like, I felt like he was literally stuck. And I was telling my midwife, break my water, break my water. And she was so calm and peaceful about it. You know, honey, in some cultures, it's good luck to have a baby be born in the sack. And like, she just was like so great about it. So I would say probably transition. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What was the red light you had during labor?
So it is a...
It's our sauna space.
It's an infrared light, and it's one of the lights that... It's the same kind of lights that are in our sauna. They're from Sauna Space, and they aren't cheap. We do have a 10% off discount code for you guys if you want to use it. It's roll-off is the code. But we have the actual sauna, and then we have just this light that we keep in our room, and we turn it on in the morning before the sun's up to get like that light
we
first
use it
in our eyeballs
to
in the morning.
Set our circadian rhythm, and I think it's been extremely helpful. And at night we turn it on just for a few minutes. We're brushing our teeth and getting ready for bed. It tells the body to go through certain chemical processes, and if you do it consistently, you'll get on a rhythm. And it helps to
offset blue light and screens. And so if like, we also try to be really mindful of like having, if we are going to be on our screens at night after dark, like to have it on, because it can offset that. If you're someone, a lot of people that have these lights, they keep them on their desk if they work on their computer all day, and they just have it like in front of their, like, when they're looking at their computer, their blue light, they have the red light on them.
It'll balance it out.
And it kind of,
we love it. I mean, we love our sauna.
It was such a vibe during the birth. Like, I loved having it. And it also adds some warmth. Like,
and because of the technology that Sauna Space specifically uses, it's a sauna true infrared light. So it's a heat source, in other words. Like, it isn't just one of those LED light panels. It's actually a hot.
And there's no UV or blue light in it, and it's EMF free.
They're awesome. Links in the description, of course. Code roll-off 10% off, which is sweet. Book recommendations to prepare for the mental side of home unmedicated birth.
You say this as like I know what you're talking about. You should.
That's a new question.
I can't even understand you. Book recommendations for what?
Book recommendations to prepare for the mental side of home / unmedicated birth.
Book recommendations. The Supernatural Childbirth book was the birth that I read before Radley's that really started to shift my perspective a lot on birth. I went into Radley's birth believing that it could be pain-free also, but I didn't fully believe it. Like, I believed that it was possible to have a pain-free birth, but I didn't myself fully believe it. until going into Mira's
even
birth.
hearing you say that, like, people aren't going to believe it. You know, it sounds crazy. It sounds literally crazy because we're so
Whatever.
programmed that it can't. That
I mean, it sounded
this
crazy.
Is a
It probably
medical emergency.
I didn't even hear about it until Radley, so it probably would have sounded crazy with me to me too with
totally.
Ember.
Totally.
But yeah, I would say that birth. I mean, Ina May Gatskin, however you say her name, is the famous one. I forget what it's even called, but that's a like really, really popular. But yeah, Supernatural Childbirth was the one that was really helpful for me. It has some good like prayers and stuff in there in the back that I like to read through, that I liked reading through leading up to birth.
That was the last question.
Great. Do you have any more questions?
Good job, babe. I mean, it was so amazing. Even just editing the vlog video, watching you do this, I mean, it's like, it's literally one of the most I mean, you women are superheroes.
Okay, now that we're done talking about it,
and by the way,
I have these things coming to my brain that I'm like, crap, why do I want to say that? And I just want to fire them off really quick because they come off. One, a lot of people said pain management. One of the things you can do for pain management in an unmedicated birth is hold a comb. So many people have said to do that. What would that do if you're holding onto a comb like this and you're gripping the comb?
It would hurt.
Right. And what are you doing when you're doing that, when you're gripping a comb? Because they're saying grip a comb because it distracts you from the pain. Yeah. It's causing another pain to distract you from the pain.
Yeah. That doesn't make sense, right?
Doesn't that seem like not what you want to do when you want to be relaxed and embracing and like open palm, open hand gesture? So that was an interesting one for me. Like,
trick the brain.
I never did that, but so many people recommended that, and I was like, how? Yeah.
Just a different perspective. Like that might really work for like that might be awesome for someone, and they trick the brain and they can guide it somewhere else.
Totally.
I think we just chose a different path there, but
and a couple other things I would just recommend for anyone wanting to have like an unmedicated physiological birth, which is just low intervention, natural, trusting your body's the natural process of having birth without interventions, unless you should need them, of course, but truly need them. One other thing that I highly recommend, I think is super, super helpful, is physical touch from your spouse in labor. Like Jeremy rubbing my shoulders, Jeremy giving me hugs, Jeremy giving me kisses. That physical touch, whether or not you're a physical touch person, it makes you feel safe. Like there is something like scientific about it when you love someone and they are physically touching you, and not just during labor, but then after the baby comes out. There's actually like a lot of people say that can help prevent postpartum hemorrhaging or reduce the amount of blood that you lose, because you're getting that safe environment, physical touch. And intimacy also is another huge thing in birth. Like we didn't even talk about the beta, delta, alpha waves.
I mentioned it.
Okay, we did.
But I actually read something the other day that was talking about the chemical process in the body via hugs. It was an article about depression, and they were trying to identify subtle solutions that would help aid in. Anyways, hugs is a big physiological thing that changes the chemistry of the body, and so because it's physical touch. And so like, but again, in our modern society, like we're so detached from so many of these subtle inputs that we just don't know. We're just, and again, all ignorant means is to lack knowledge. And so that's not a diss. We're ignorant in many, many, many ways because we don't know a lot about a lot of things, right? But like, we're so ignorant as a society that we just forget. But fortunately, we now have technology that's able to like study and watch and observe some of these processes that's proving things that were said thousands of years ago, while also reminding us we're remembering how to be human in kind of a new way, a new light, I think, which is just beautiful and amazing. And I think one of the biggest things is the power of the mind. Like that is really coming to the surface right now for a lot of people of like, oh, wow, we've kind of been in this weird, like lulled to sleep, programmed robotic state for X amount of years. And many people now feel like they're like blossoming. They're like peeking their head up above the veil going, why are things kind of the way they are? And why do I believe that? And I think COVID was honestly a big wake up call for a lot of people. And we've mentioned this a lot of times, but for us, it accelerated our health journey. We started going, why do people want, like, is this really working or this and that? We started asking questions, and that's really it. Ask questions. And then if the answer you get is the answer you're being told, great. But if you come to a different conclusion, be strong enough to start chasing the rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome.
I'm trying to.
Yeah, firearms. I'm getting in the way.
No, you're not getting in the way at all. And I love what you're saying.
Well,
and I want you to expand on all of that stuff even more. I'm just trying to think if there's any other like random questions that I saw come up that were like the birth tub. A lot of people ask about the birth tub. Okay, one thing about the birth tub, I'll link the birth tub that I use because it's like it's a white birth tub specifically from this. Super
hardy.
Yeah,
I gave it a couple kicks. Like, make sure it's.
If you watch birth vlogs on YouTube, most people rent the birth pool in a box or birth in a box, whatever it's called. Right? No, and they're typically like these big giant blue pools. I got it from this more like boutique company because I wanted the pretty white pool, and it's smaller.
Oh yeah.
So if you're someone that has faster bursts, I recommend it because if you don't care,
it fills up faster.
If you don't care if your spouse is in it with you, if you want your spouse to be in the tub with you, which a lot of people do, I just haven't typically like wanted or needed that. But if you want them to get in with you to support you, then it might not work because it doesn't have enough room for two people. But if it's just you in the tub, yeah, then I recommend this birth pool because it's smaller, so it'll feel faster if you have a faster labor, or and it'll stay warmer. And it also gave me more leverage. Like it wasn't so. Yeah. I feel like I wasn't swimming it. I could like floating. Kick my legs off different sides of it, and it was like the perfect size. It didn't take up too much space in our bedroom, so we could have it blown up for like a month before she was born. It was just like blown up in our bedroom. You could buckle down in there
instead of be like your leg floating up.
Right, and it's pretty, and we do have to buy it. You can't rent the birth in a box things. You rent. Or sometimes your midwives just have those. That you
but
can
like
rent,
now we have a nice sturdy pool for the kids next summer. Yeah, it's fine.
So that was
instead of those cheap Amazon ones that you have to like buy a new one every year because they just lose air and pop.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of any other one.
What was the overall tone? Like, would you say the majority of questions came? You probably got thousands.
I know. I was trying to think if there was anything else that wasn't in there. Was the overall tone? People are asking. But
curious.
We probably went through
I'm just curious. Curious, fearful.
There's a lot of people that are on the fence about having a home birth.
Interesting. And like encourage people. Like
there's a lot of okay. So in my messages, since you guys don't see this side, sometimes I like to share this with you guys too, so you can see what kinds of things like people are asking. But there was a lot of messages from people that like, I had my first baby at the hospital and I really want to do a home birth, but I'm not sure like what pros and cons between the birth center. Or a lot of people that are like, I had this experience with my first, but I really want to have a home birth with my second. Like a lot of people doing that. A lot of people intrigued about it. Something about their first birth made them change their mind or made their eyes open to then doing it a different way or trusting their body differently. So there's a lot of that. I really don't see that much like, and maybe this is just because I've shared about this enough and have a different audience or like an audience that's open to me sharing about this now. But like, I don't get a lot of comments from people in there saying fear mongering things about home birth. Yeah. I really don't. Of all the questions that I got, there was a couple people asking things like, was the child traumatized and stuff? But like, there really wasn't. Most people are genuinely curious about how to have I'm pregnant with my first, like, would you recommend home birth to your first baby? And like, if that's you, like, wow, the fact that you're even considering doing a home birth with your first baby, like you should have, props to you. Like, I was not there. You're way further down the journey than I am. You're probably going to be a free birther by the time it's your third. Yeah. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know what else to even say about it.
It's a beautiful thing.
Anyways, yeah, that's probably good. We went through a lot of things. Thanks for being here for the birth episodes. We have an exciting guest for next week. Our first guest on the show this season. Still kind of in the lane of health, holistic health, which kind of ties into birth, but not birth related. And we're excited to chat with them.
We Googled something and it said, this does not work. So we're bringing in an expert to talk about it.
Yeah, it's true. We did
Google with that.
I asked Jeremy, I said, is AI...
Don't say what it is.
Oh, no, I won't say what it is. But I said, is AI as biased as Google?
Yeah, well, we got to talk a little more about AI.
Because I know everyone knows Google is biased, right? But is AI
So
biased? Because
AI
I feel like it's scrubbing more information.
We gotta go because
but it clearly looked biased based on their answer.
Well, it's algorithmically programmed to, I would say, cognitive bias in a sense. Like the more you use certain AI platforms, like for example, when I type in something on ChatGPT, it will give me an answer that's extremely curated to my known search results and my interests. You know what I mean?
I don't like that
You can
either,
turn
though.
that feature off. So there are ways to program it. But unlike Google,
cool.
AI will learn on itself.
What happens when you turn it?
Google's algorithms, they are programmed in their algorithms and they spit out results based on certain inputs that the human does. AI is this whole unique world where it'll start to do things
Adapt to you.
outside of input. And so anyways,
crazy.
Let's have a conversation. We should bring in we got to do more guests.
I would love to bring in someone that knows a lot about AI.
We got to do more guests.
That would be fascinating.
All right.
Fascinating.
Thank you.
Thanks guys for listening. We'll see you next week.